Hey everybody, Chris McCabe here of e-commerce. Chris, welcome back to another episode of Amazon Suspension Trends. And we've got a troubling one from March to present. About 3 months now, we've been receiving numerous contacts, if not every day, every other day, from sellers already suspended or about to be suspended for review manipulation. And the purpose of today's video is really just to stop you or your friends or anyone you know in their tracks from doing some of these ancient marketing methods that just don't work anymore. If they do work, they work short term. You're likely to get busted for it, and it's going to be harder than ever to appeal it. And we do hear from sellers that just don't have any success appealing it, and they're kind of one and done, even if they haven't been suspended before. So maybe that's the first point I'll start with. If you've been suspended before for review manipulation and you got it cleared, or you weren't suspended, but they were about to suspend you and they accepted a past appeal, just understand that you're on your last legs. You're on your last chance. Either way, if they catch you doing review manipulation, expect that you won't get your account back. Expect that being in the reoffender bucket means that unless you've got heavyweight allies inside the company that are willing to go to bat for you and lobby for you, which that does sometimes happen. I've occasionally heard from some bigger brands or, some brands with 9 lives on Amazon who come back and say, you know what, we found somebody who's an ally and they went to bat for us and they helped us out. And even though we reoffended, we're still selling and we're going to be on our last chance now, but we're not going to be banned. I mean, that's great for them. Those are single-digit percentages and unlikely plays for most brands out there. So we're going to set those aside as exceptions. Everyone else that's marked as a reoffender, it means you were told. If your previous appeal was accepted, great, but you were told at that time, you got to stick to whatever you put in the appeal. You start straying from it, you hire an agency that gets you away from compliance and comes up with some new tricks and gimmicks, you get caught again, don't expect to come back, no matter who is working on your appeals. Me, somebody who's friendly with you at Amazon, anybody, your odds are automatically damaged at that point. I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm not saying give up from the get-go and roll over and go back to sleep. Just saying, understand the situation you're in, which is a phrase I've started using more and more with review manipulation cases because I am still hearing from brands doing giveaways. Example number 1, they think Amazon's not going to catch them. They think it's offline. They think they're okay because they're not asking for reviews or they're not asking for 5-star reviews. It actually doesn't matter anymore. This might be the 4th or 5th time on the podcast or on these videos I've mentioned this. If you're giving product away, it doesn't matter if you're asking for a review or not. This is probably the number 1 misconception out there. I see people pushing newsletters, marketing videos, YouTube conversations and interviews, whatever, that are still ignoring this fact. Those people are pushing dangerous concepts. People are getting suspended by listening to them. And sellers are bringing this on themselves if they accept at face value what they see in some of these videos without questioning whether or not it's TOS compliant, by making sure that whoever you're listening to addresses compliance in the video, or if you contact their company, they've got a compliance arm or a compliance team. As far as I can tell, most of them don't. A lot of agencies don't. So you're playing with fire if you're just listening and blindly accepting it. I was gullible. I didn't know what I was doing. Isn't going to fly anymore. Amazon doesn't accept those apologies anymore. If they actually tell you to write a plan of action, which they rarely do anymore, and you're admitting guilt and you're trying to push improvement plan type info together, if anyone at Amazon recommends that, or if you start doing it on your own, you're doing it knowing that it's a Hail Mary, or you're understanding that you're probably just pleading for mercy at that point and accepting that they might just not want to hear it, right? And again, you're kind of starting from a position where you're on your last legs from the get-go. All to try to get a few more sales, a few more reviews, or just try to stay current against your competition. I'm not sure what reasoning people have for doing some of these techniques. They're really old. They're really risky. Amazon's already punished so many sellers for scan my QR code, get a free item, and then, maybe later encouraging them to leave a review, or even not asking them to leave a review, but getting a lot of reviews out of it. Either way, people are getting punished. Amazon's so sick of this topic. You can probably tell that I'm sick of this topic, but part of the reason I'm sick of it isn't because people are contacting us for suspension help. We talk to people about this all the time. We're used to that. and it's a worthwhile conversation to have. But I see the appeals people are writing. There's no analysis. There's no fact finding. There's no real research. People are trying to kind of cover things up, or they're hoping Amazon didn't see that they were doing all these things. Number one question is, why were you doing all these things? Who was in charge of doing all these things? Blaming some marketing team that you erroneously hired, or blaming some agency you never should have paid doesn't cut it anymore. Rarely works. Usually Amazon only tells you to do this if they think it's your last shot, and maybe you can blame a service. Amazon has some of their own selfish reasons for wanting to know which services are being hired to help you abuse these policies, because in the last couple of years, they've enjoyed chasing after some services, and they're basically using you as a kind of human shield to gather some intel and some info to chase someone else, right? That doesn't necessarily help you with your account. That helps them load up some ammunition against somebody that they want to take out, because they think it's somebody who's, mucking up the platform and ruining the marketplace. So that's kind of a story for another day. I'm sure I'll do a video on that as well. But they're basically just squeezing you like a sponge. Maybe it helps you, maybe it doesn't. Certainly be transparent. If they've caught you doing things, if they've caught you doing giveaways, it's going to be very difficult to argue that they haven't caught you. Competitors buy from you all the time if they have any brains at all. So knowing that your competitors, if you have any success on Amazon, you've got some competition. Knowing that they probably did catch you doing something, you're going to have to give Amazon something. I'm not saying you acknowledge that you've been doing all sorts of types of abuse that they may or may not understand. Amazon gets this stuff wrong a lot. They over accuse a lot. So you want to get into the details. You want to make sure, speaking of squeezing people like sponges, you want to make sure you get to account health reps that have a clue, that have some training, that have some ability to tell you what you were caught doing. If they're not willing to tell you anything, you're probably wasting your time on that call. I know that happens a lot. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it a certain number of times to try to get some intel, because you might get something usable. But the bottom line is, do some digging, do some research to figure out if you got some reviews out of it. The caveat here is that recently Amazon started saying, you know what? And I've been on some of these calls with PRA, product review abuse investigators, joining the call with an escalation or a leadership team member, and they will lecture the brand. Even if you didn't get reviews out of it, if you made the attempt and we catch you making an attempt, we may continue to enforce the account and ultimately tell you the decision's final and that you're not coming back. I had that on more than one occasion. Why are they doing that? Because now they don't even really care if you're netting reviews out of it anymore. I still counsel some sellers to point out, hey, we've never been suspended before. We only got a review or two. And in some cases I worked on, there's only been a couple of reviews they actually got out of it, and they hadn't been suspended for anything over the course of years. Yes, definitely put that in the appeal. Definitely use that as the basis of a dispute. You can't change history. You can't revise the past if you were doing things you weren't supposed to be doing. And this also goes for sabotaging your competition. Amazon has a big bee in their bonnet right now for you bought from your competitors to leave them 1-star reviews. I assume if you're doing that, you know that once you're caught, you could be done. But for the sake of argument, let's say you did that and you went back and you deleted the review. Yes, use that in your appeal as well. I'm not saying don't include these things, but understand they have limited value at this point. And Amazon might not care. That's why it's better to not be caught doing these things in the first place. That's why it's better to vet your practices before you hire a service, before you let your employees do things, before you let your VAs run wild doing whatever you think they've done for another seller to help them out with stuff like this. Selling as much as you can, keeping up with your competition no matter what the cost might be. That's not 2025 Amazon. Maybe that's 2022 or 2021. I don't know when you started your brand. That's not the way things are now. Understand that somebody like me is doing this video and revisiting this concept and this topic over and over and over, probably already a couple times this year for a reason. Well, the reason is I'm constantly talking to brands who are turning their brains off when they hire services or just doing rampant risky stuff, and then they want to apologize after it's over. Don't expect that to fly. In today's Amazon, expect that you've got competitors that aren't breaking rules the way you are. Amazon would rather have them sell than you, or they just don't want to hear these sad, weak, pathetic explanations anymore. They'd rather you're gone. Or let's say they're willing to listen, they're willing to read your appeals, they're going to make life difficult, and they're going to make the appeals process more stringent, more submissions, more suspension time, more revenue lost, all the things that you hear me talking about, unfortunately, on these episodes. So thanks again for listening in. Questions on this, follow up with us at e-commerce Chris, put it in the comments below, and I will respond to them accordingly. Thank you.